So, next we're on to translating. Once the texts were written, once copies were made and handed down to us, then we've got to translate them, for instance, into English, because originally they were written primarily in Hebrew and Greek, and I assume you don't read Hebrew or Greek. I don't really read Hebrew or Greek. I studied them in graduate school, but I don't read them now. For me to read them, it's got to be translated from Greek and Hebrew into English. Now, some translation difficulties. The original texts did not have the following. One, punctuation. Right? You write a sentence now, you put a period at the end or a question mark at the end. There wasn't any punctuation in ancient Greek and ancient Hebrew. Capitalization. Here you have a proper name, you capitalize it. There were no capitals. You didn't capitalize proper names. You didn't capitalize the first word at the beginning of a sentence. So, yeah, again, today you write a sentence, you put a period at the end, you start a new one and you capitalize your first word. There's none of that. There's no periods, there's no capitalization. Greek had no spaces between the words. So here, I take a sentence, my name is Craig. I write M-Y space, N-A-M-E space is, you get the idea. There are no spaces. So what you get in Greek is, my name is Craig, all run together. Which makes it hard to tell, in some cases, is this a compound word or is this two words that I should separate out? Shh, be quiet, Jackson. I'm working. In addition, there were no quotation marks in either Greek or in Hebrew. What this means, no quotation marks. You've probably seen Bibles where the words of Jesus are in red. The Bible that you guys have, if you got the one in the bookstore, is not like that. But some of them, they take the words of Jesus and put them in red. There's no way to know for sure which verses are intended to be Jesus' own speech because there are no quotation marks in the original. If you see your Bible and it says Jesus said blah blah blah, and then the quotation mark ends and then the narration begins again, that's a translator's best guess because there are no quotation marks in the original texts. Last here is vowels. In Hebrew, until the 9th century CE, there were no vowels in Hebrew, which makes it hard to read Hebrew. You have to think of what the vowels might be in the text. So in the 9th century, they started adding vowels to the Hebrew language. But when all these texts were written that are in the Bible, there were no vowels. So move on to the next. If you see, the original text, if we put all these problems together, the original text would have looked like this in English. And if you look there, what this says is the original texts would have looked like this in English. What I've done there is take out the capitalization, take out the punctuation, take out the vowels, take out the spaces. That's what it would have looked like. If you're a translator of a text from the Bible, what you have is basically something like this to start from. And you have to get from there to the version that we see in English when you open your Bible. There's a lot of work that goes into this. Now, this is a little bit unfair. Hebrew did have spaces between words and Greek did have vowels. So this is putting together problems in Greek and Hebrew together that weren't really there. But this is tough work. Now, if you look on the next thing here, punctuation problems. What happens when you take out punctuation? Let's take this first line. He found his husband sleeping with their therapist. The next day they argued. If you put in punctuation in different places, this can have a completely different meaning. So the first way, he found his husband sleeping with their therapist, period. The next day they argued, period. This is really bad. This is one man cheating on his husband. The next line is another way of reading this if you put punctuation in differently. He found his husband sleeping, period. With their therapist, comma, the next day, comma, they argued. Right? You put punctuation in a different place in the text, you can get a completely different meaning. And I could show you examples, the same thing, with if you take out vowels or take out spaces between words, you have similar problems where it can be interpreted in completely different ways, depending on, well, do we put the vowel here? Do we put the space there? Which punctuation do we put in? Where do we close the parenthesis or start the parenthesis? those things are made up by the translators as best guesses.